Hey guys, welcome to Shift Slash. My name is Charlie,
I'm Alan.
and today we're going to be talking a little bit about our journey in building this company and growing this company. You know, this conversation is fresh on our minds right now because we just had this conversation this morning, and I think we both feel the pressure maybe
I
of
mean, I think let's be specific, right? Like by growth, you know, the conversation we had this morning is kind of one that any business should have about long-term goals for the year. So, you can break them down however you want them. You have like monthly, whatever. So you talk about finance, you talk about all different types of things, and one of the areas is growing your team. And what that means. And it's something that you know we've been really curious to explore. We've had a lot of conversations about it. It's definitely something we're both stoked on. It's something that we've both been talking about for a while and kind of have slightly different positions on. For me, the conversation of adding new team members is like we both take it very seriously, and you want to add someone at the right time, but when is the right time, right? Do you add um, as you're growing? Do you add a new team member as work accumulates? Do you add it before work accumulates? And it's this whole kind of negotiation of time, even stuff like seniority. You know what I mean?
right.
You were talking about, do we hire someone very senior?
Yeah.
Do we hire someone junior because it's a little easier on the bank account, at least to begin with? So even thinking about the types of hire was something interesting. Like, do we hire someone who's a junior designer, or do we hire someone who's like a project manager?
Yeah, marketing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever, social media. It's I think it's interesting to think a little bit about the level of seniority because of course there's savings advantages to hiring someone more junior, but I do think there's other advantages actually as well, right? Like for starters, maybe someone that's really junior doesn't have such a defined process, and so if we're trying to build like a specific kind of culture, on the one hand, the work's production is a little bit slower with someone that's a bit more junior, but on the other hand, there's a lot less negotiation in terms of what the process should look like because this is someone that's looking to us for guidance as opposed to someone who might come in with their own opinion. So the seniority thing isn't just about cost. I also think it's about when you're ready to modify your processes versus when you want someone to sort of come in and wholesale adopt them. Uh, yeah, that's where I can imagine hiring someone really senior can come in handy is let's say we get to a point where we're at 30 employees. I don't know if that's our ambition, but let's say maybe 10 is more realistic, right?
Totally,
And
yeah.
then we want someone who's managed a team that big. And so that's when we'd go for someone senior, or maybe we want someone who has experience managing just two people, and so then it's like us and a senior person and then a bunch of junior designers on the team. But I think yeah that's one area where we're feeling a little bit of the decision making pains, and
Totally,
and I think what's interesting about what you said earlier is also the when, because
yeah.
and it's funny we were having this conversation with a potential client this morning actually about timing the hire. You need people to get more work done, but you don't want to get them if the more work isn't there,
Totally,
right? Like we want to get
yeah.
more work, and so we need people to receive that work, but we
Yeah,
don't want to bring someone on if we're not sure that work is going to come in. And so it's like, what do we do with this?
yeah. Like two passing ships in the night. You got to kind of make it work at the right time and get the right hire at the right time. And hiring can be, a very painstaking process, especially, the last 2 years. It seems like it's been very difficult, in general to get good help,
Good
good
senior help, I would
team.
say.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting to think about is like when you hire someone, you know, all of a sudden you have to add their salary to, the amount of money you have to make in a year. which changes, and also you have a lot of responsibility to ensure security for another human being.
Yeah.
And when you work as a freelancer for so long, um, there's a certain degree of autonomy that you feel, and you can sort of just take on certain bad habits and take on certain pains that you might not otherwise allow for someone you hire, right?
Right.
In terms of what they might have to deal with. Like, as a freelancer, I'm a little bit more lead or was a little bit more lenient with my clients than I would allow for someone I hire. Which is it's kind of a whole different ball game. So all of a sudden, you have a lot of responsibilities for another person, and helping them pay their rent, helping them, not helping them. I mean, they're doing the work for you to pay their rent and whatnot, but at the same time, they're relying on you to kind of be a steady source of income, which, to be honest, it terrifies me.
Right.
Straight up, like, that terrifies me. The thing that I'm excited about most for hiring someone is just, I love people, and working with competent people who are good at what they do and can really bring something to the table is super exciting. Even just our collaboration, we have such different skill sets that it's not an additive process. It's a multiplying equation. And the more people you have, it really does multiply your capacity, and it starts to create an actual company. It
Right.
starts to create like a community, I think, is the way I prefer to think about it. And like a culture, and you can't build that unless you have people.
Yeah, I guess the the underlying, like, the sort of hidden cost of all of this is the process overhead that ends up getting added, right? No matter how competent the team you're building is, inevitably there's a task management component that's going to sort of appear. Inevitably, like, even just two people, you and I,
Yeah,
it's already apparent that, oh shit, now we need to, worry about someone else's output because you don't want to do redundant work. Of course, it is multiplicative. We're not just twice as efficient when we're two people. There's actually, it's more than that. But then there's the other side of it, which is like, what do I do this week? What do you do this week? When do we brainstorm? When do we go solo? And that's very minor compared to what will happen when you're three people. And then I think it's also exponentially overhead with each person. It's not like three people is like a little bit more difficult. Four people is a little bit more. It's like a lot more difficult with each step.
totally.
I remember seeing somewhere there's like these magic cutoffs in team management. I need to remember the exact numbers, but like, apparently dynamics shift permanently after 25, and then again after 50, and then
Oh
again
my
after
gosh.
100.
Yeah.
And then I think like over 1,000, it's basically just like it's too abstract to matter. But it's
Yeah.
there's a major shift that happens. I think, yeah, it's like 5, 25, 50, and then from then on, it's, yeah. So I think that's going to be really interesting, and for me, I'm excited. Like, I don't know, maybe more than half of this experience for me is about learning what it takes to get a team and company going, more so than
Yeah.
making a ton of cash, or I don't know.
Totally.
There's
I mean,
naturally,
if that
yeah,
was the goal, we would be doing something totally different. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, it's important, and we want to live good lives, and we want to be able to pay ourselves well. But at the end of the day, it's about learning. Like, I think at the core of a company should be learning, and learning about yourself, and ideally, like, learning a little bit about a small corner of the world,
right.
developing like an expertise, and connecting with, I think one of the coolest things about what we're doing is we get to learn so much stuff. Like, I know that sounds corny, but like, when working in a different, there's very few opportunities to jump around into different domains, like work in health, work in education, work in, in news or like media, work in sustainability and
Right.
farming and agriculture. And each one of these different people, they come to us and we get all this rich information about all these different domains. And that's awesome. And that's really for me what I would say probably more than 50% of the reason I wanted to do this too is just being able to meet people and learn about what they're doing in their own fields, and especially fields that I have an interest in, which
Yeah.
we both have an interest in.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think that's a yeah, like there's obviously like that level of learning from the clients and from the work itself. And I feel like in a way, growth, like having goals for growth of the team adds almost like a forced layer of learning on top of all of that. Because the
Yeah,
thing is,
totally.
if you and I were like, you know what, we just want to have a two-man show, let's go work with, the best clients we can find that we like, that we want to support, we could probably honestly make a very decent living and have relatively comfortable lives. Uh, and we'll learn a lot about different topics, we'll learn a lot about like different things, but it's, I wouldn't think of it as learning on as many layers as if we set growth targets.
Yeah,
A little bit
totally.
like the exercise we were doing this morning when we were thinking, how much money do we want to make by what date? How many clients do we want to manage by what date? And what is the hiring requirements to make those goals happen? And by default, we're now learning about scaling. We're now learning about managing processes on that level. And again, it's different managing a process as like as a senior employee in a company where maybe you worked with someone, because of course you're responsible for them, but when you're the business owner and you're trying to manage someone, it's like literally whether or not they make money lives and dies with your hand. It's
Yeah.
it's it's 100% on us. And I can't think of a better way to learn anything, right? It's the literal definition of jumping into the deep end of a pool and learning to swim that way versus like taking a course on swimming and then practicing swimming on the ground. And then, I don't know who practice swimming on the ground. It's like slapping the floor. Maybe like practice swimming with your dad holding you or something, but in
Yeah,
this case, it's
totally.
just like, you know what? You're like 3 feet tall. Here's a 10-foot pool. Just go, and figure it
Yeah.
out.
And it's also it's an interesting way of looking at it too, because one of the kind of more serious conversations we had is like, you know in some, we're definitely pushing ourselves off into the pool to learn how to swim. But if we hire someone, at the end of the day, we take responsibility. And if that means that we pay them what we promised, and we don't pay, or we don't pay ourselves, and we don't pay ourselves a salary, like, that's where it gets into a serious conversation where it's like, okay, if you hire at the wrong time, you sort of have an obligation. Obviously, there's moments where you can think about if it's worth the hire or whatever, but if you hire at the wrong time and you have an obligation to someone,
Right.
it can it can it can it can kill a company, which is scary and intense. But it's
Right.
all intense, and it's part of the learning. And it's one of the reasons that we want to make sure that when we get to that stage, we do it intentionally, and with enough of like with enough confidence that we can do it the right way. You
Right.
know.
Right.
So we're pushing ourselves into the pool with floaties on our arms, but we still don't know how to swim.
That is a good point because when thinking about the levels of excitement each of us has for growing the team, we're not on opposite ends of the spectrum like fully, but we
No.
might have like slightly different tolerances for, let's say, the risk
Hmm.
of hiring sooner rather than later. And I feel like we met somewhere in the middle in the end, like a
Yeah,
good
totally.
middle where it's like let's not wait too long, uh, to the point where it's like we're exhausted before we hire. Where at the same time it's like let's not get someone on like in the next week when
Yeah.
it's like we have the cash to pay them this month, and then that's it. It's like,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
so yeah, having that cash in the bank to make sure you can pay people for like a certain number of months, you buy yourself time to close more contracts. I also feel like this is one of those areas where getting inspiration from other agencies, maybe finding a
Hmm.
mentor or something is really essential for growth. Like it in this day and age, nothing has to be that painful with so much information that's abundantly available to us. And with the
Yeah,
internet that enables us to talk to literally anyone,
yeah,
anywhere, we don't have to find a mentor that's like built an agency like ours 1 meter down the street. We can just you know, talk to someone in
yeah,
Vancouver or in New York or in Tokyo. I don't know.
yeah. Anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the next step, and we're gonna, talk to our networks and find people to talk to about growth and hiring. And it's one of the most important things with anything. As we've been growing, we've been tapping into the resources that are available to us to learn, even sharing with clients, being very transparent and kind of sharing pricing, sharing, a lot of stuff, which is not necessarily traditional. I'm not sure what traditional means, but we've been very open with our process, and this podcast is part of being open with that process. We'll definitely have more to say as we grow, but I think the point of this podcast today was just to let you in a little bit on why you should grow a team and what you should think about when growing a team, and have a real conversation about it together, you and me, and have an open dialogue about you know this serious topic, which is hiring people.
Right. Right. Hopefully, like in the coming weeks, we'll get some
Yeah,
signs that will
totally.
communicate what we need to do a little bit more clearly to ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
But for now, it's just, living in the uncertainty of these questions. I think any kind of growth, whether it's growing a business or personal development, even like taking a new class or anything that triggers this sort of process is always uncomfortable. But
Yeah,
I think, yeah, for now it's exciting. For now, it's something we're looking forward to. And
I think that's it. I don't know how to end these
I don't know how to
things,
end these
I
things
guess.
either.
Thanks for listening. If you made it to the end, we hope you learned something. We are every day, and everything we learn, we hope to share. So take it easy. Enjoy your drive wherever. I don't know if they're driving. I'm gonna stop.
I
I need
think
to
we'll
stop
just see them
talking.
next
All
week,
right.
and that's enough.
Peace.
Bye. I hate that there's this little music icon in front of me here. There.
It's fine. It's
It
fine.
looks
It's
so
for me.
annoying.